From being that insufferable guy who only plays Drake, Travis Scott, and Lil Baby on the aux, to treating hip-hop like a religion, there are different levels to hip-hop fandom and knowledge. From the uncultured newbies to human encyclopedias, we're going to break down the 7 levels of hip-hop. And before we actually get into it, big shout out to Dupli, whose video called The 7 Levels of Rapper inspired this format. Go check out that video if you haven't already, but let's get into this. Starting with level 1, this is wallpaper rap. This is the music that you listen to that you never chose to listen to. These artists and songs just get played around you. It's wallpaper music. It's like showing up to gym class and your teacher puts Stronger by Kanye West on the speakers. Or going to Target and hearing Congratulations by Post Malone. Or hearing See You Again by Wiz Khalifa because you just happened to watch Furious 7. Or you heard it on the radio or someone told you about Paul Walker and this tribute. None of the listening here is intentional, and a lot of these tracks are simply inescapable. This is a level where anyone who ever purchases a few albums or subscribes to a streaming service will automatically move on from. You're usually in this range as a kid, unless you never get into hip-hop at all, which means that you might be stuck in this purgatory forever. We've all been here. This is before the actual discovery phase. This is the rap music even someone who hates the genre of hip-hop will have no choice but to take in. Some of these songs are the equivalent to unseasoned chicken breast and others are outright terrible, but some of these songs are undeniable classics. There's a reason why everyone's heard them. They might have catchy hooks, a hypnotizing instrumental, impressive rapping, and ultimately, they make you feel something. Imagine walking through life and never having heard God's Plan by Drake, or Sicko Mode by Travis Scott, or In the Club by 50 Cent, or Old Town Road by Lil Nas X, or Without Me by Eminem. It's at this point that you only know Ice Cube and Will Smith as actors, and you would be stunned to know that they've actually had really important careers in hip-hop. What's interesting about hip-hop music is that since the genre exploded into the forefront of pop culture back in the late 80s, countless rappers, albums, and songs have become international phenomenons. Records that truly went pop and were consumed by the masses. For example, if you lived in the 80s, it was Run DMC after their link up with Aerosmith. In the 90s, it was Biggie and Tupac, whose rise and tragic deaths became worldwide news. In the 2000s, it was Eminem, whose shock value and storytelling made him one of the biggest artists on planet Earth. The 2010s, of course, belong to the big three, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, and J. Cole, who defined the streaming era and cemented hip-hop as the dominant sound of modern music. And now in the 2020s, we're seeing some of the biggest pop stars borrowing from hip-hop, while even entire genres like K-pop wouldn't even exist in their current form without hip-hop's influence. Today, this level mostly consists of Drake, Travis Scott, Post Malone, Nicki Minaj, Eminem, 50 Cent, and Snoop Dogg. This is music that's basically forced upon you. You don't really have a say in it. It's what the whole entire world gets exposed to, whether they like it or not. Once this happens, and you like some of what you hear, that's when the hunger for discovery begins. This is when you graduate to becoming someone who enjoys hip-hop music, even if it's on the smaller scale. Level 2, the NPC. We all know at least a few NPC music fans, and let's be real, some of you watching this were probably part of this group at some point in time, and hell, some of you are probably stuck in this and will stay stuck in it forever. I'm playing, but the good news is that this is the easiest level to evolve from. But let's really break down the layers of this. If you're an NPC hip-hop fan, you're someone who's easy to please. A lot of the rap songs you enjoy were probably found on TikTok, or that got played on the radio like Doja Cat's Paint the Town Red, or Jack Harlow's First Class, or maybe Drake's Hotline Bling, which I can't blame you for that one, it still sounds good to this day. But this is soulless, corporate, manufactured, mostly pop rap music. But the point is, instead of listening to albums, you're someone that probably likes to enjoy listening to playlists because you just don't know any better. And it's not even a playlist that you made, it's a playlist that was already made that you just started bumping, and it's probably Rap Caviar or something adjacent to that where it's really surrounded around the biggest hits of the moment. You're not the main character or even a side character. You're not going out of your own way to go on your own musical journey or adventure. You're waiting for your Spotify algorithm to tell you what to listen to. Some people think that if Drake, Travis Scott, Kanye West, Nicki Minaj, and Lil Wayne make up your Spotify Wrapped, then you must be an NPC, that you're a bot, that you're not real. And although that could be true, it's not always the case. Sure, you can be an NPC and have those names at the top of your list, but two things can be true at once. You can genuinely love those artists while still having a deep rotation that's filled with a bunch of other artists that just aren't as prominent in your listening as those top 5. If you're in this level, you think that Drake is the greatest rapper of all time, Astroworld is your #1 rap album of all time, and when your friend says, "Put me on, bro," you suggest Humble by Kendrick Lamar. Level 3, stands. Now you've gotten tired of the empty roads that the algorithms, charts, and radio have left you on, and you're looking for something more to feel fulfilled. Your ears, your mind, your soul are craving more. You start going out and discovering exactly which artists you like, which style or styles of hip-hop you really gravitate towards. This is the prime discovery phase because you start to really define your own music taste. But sometimes you start to like an artist so much that it becomes an obsession. This is a level that a lot of hip-hop fans and fans of every genre have been through, but no one wants to live through for too long because it can get really fucking pathetic and sometimes dangerous, like this. Or like this. You don't want to be this guy. In real life, you become unbearable to be around for how much glazing you do for this artist, and on the internet, you turn into a villain, losing any semblance of rationale and lucidity. Basically, you often become a delusional human shield for someone who doesn't even know you. The whole thing is parasocial, and unfortunately, a lot of people really become out of touch with reality. Sometimes it reaches the point where you're sending death threats just because someone has a negative opinion on your favorite rapper's music. It's wild. You reach a point of complete indoctrination where you try to justify some of the most heinous shit ever, and we've seen it time and time again. We saw with the Kendrick and Drake beef, where Kendrick stans essentially put him on this high pedestal where he has this moral superiority that can only be rivaled by Jesus Christ, and for Drake, none of his actions have ever been questionable, and he's never put out a bad album, song, verse, or bar in his entire career, and if you think so, it's because you're a virgin. I mean, that's the only logical explanation, right? Everyone has a favorite artist, but some people quickly expand their taste beyond that favorite artist, and other people just stick with that favorite artist. But even those people are usually listening to more than just the rapper they stan. And so I'm using the stan term in a very loose way for this level. For example, you can be a stan of emo rap, and that's the only music you'll listen to. You might just love a good echo chamber of depressive lyrics that are relatable, or maybe you're into rage rap because you feel like it's the sound of your generation and you like catching elbows to the face in a pit on a Thursday night. Maybe you're an unk who's stuck in the 90s and every up-and-coming rapper here just isn't tough enough, isn't lyrical enough, and couldn't survive in my era and doesn't make real hip-hop. And why can't they be more like Chuck D? If you're in this level, you're either a stan of a rapper or stuck to a certain era or style of hip-hop. You know what you like, and you don't really want to take any risks or waste your time listening to music that you think you'll probably end up hating anyway. You're a creature of habit, and you're too comfortable. But like Future Hendrix once said, bitch, don't get too comfortable. Level 4, King of the Mainstream. At this point, your taste has grown, you've started loving the art of beats and rhymes, and now you're on the lookout for everything. Before you know it, you become the king of the mainstream. Gunna drops a new album, you're there on release night. Playboi Carti drops a new album, you're showing up at midnight. Lil Baby, Nicki Minaj, Drake, Kanye West, Travis Scott, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Young Thug, Future, Eminem, Tyler the Creator, Don Toliver, 21 Savage, Lil Wayne. Your world revolves around the big artists, and you now feel like you're part of the larger hip-hop community. You start listening to classics and feel accomplished as you move through a list like Illmatic, done. Doggy Style, done. Get Rich or Die Tryin', done. The Eminem Show, done. Good Kid, Mad City, done. And there's nothing wrong with being limited to these bunch of albums. I mean, they're essential rap albums that have received widespread critical acclaim. They've won Grammys, and then you listen to all of Kanye's albums and you start tweeting shit like, Kanye's the GOAT because you can make a case for any of his albums being his best. There's a lot of maturity that comes with this stage. You're fully invested into hip-hop, attending live shows and festivals when you can. You start watching Anthony Fantano's album reviews and start using words like record and LP and tracks and cohesiveness. Even thinking you're such an expert that you start writing your own reviews on rateyourmusic.com. Most importantly, all you really care about is hearing good hip-hop music. You start telling your friends about them and you say, listen, buddy, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. An album that'll blow your mind. Are you ready for this one? Write this down. The Carter 3. It's from this guy from New Orleans. He goes by the name of Lil Wayne. You know, the Grammy-winning rap album that sold 1 million copies first week. What a discovery, Jimmy. Oh boy. You're able to enjoy the catchiness and the high-energy features of a cinematic trap album like Heroes and Villains by Metro Boomin, but you also appreciate the impressive track sequencing and polished mixing. On top of that, you can enjoy genre-bending albums like Don't Tap the Glass by Tyler, the Creator, from the disco and funk grooves of Sugar on My Tongue to the West Coast 90s vibes and talkbox touches on the DJ Quick-inspired Sucker Free. At this point, you start studying the music, and you open up Genius and read the annotations of a Lupe Fiasco triple entendre, and your socks are blown off. Now you feel like an expert because you feel like you're really doing it. You're analyzing music through a microscopic lens. Even if you weren't even the one to unpeel the onion yourself, it doesn't matter. Your taste may still be somewhat basic, but you're really becoming familiar with the genre. You follow the mainstream acts while also appreciating artists who are less popular but still noteworthy. Rappers like Denzel Curry, Vince Staples, Jid, Isaiah Rashad, Osama Son, Shay, Nems, Joey Badass, Lancey Foo, Tizo Touchdown, and others now become part of your rotation. At this stage, you're aware of a lot of the big names, but you start to wonder, is there more to life than another high-energy rap rock album from Don Toliver, or a new Lil Baby that sounds like the last two Lil Baby albums? So, you decide to dip your toes into the unknown. And then somehow, you land on a JPEG Mafia song where he shouts "fuck Elon Musk" and bang. Just like that, you've had a life-changing experience. Level 5, the underground. It's at this point that hip-hop really starts to take over your life, and you'd rather stay in on a Friday night and listen to Take Me to Your Leader by King Ghidorah for the 16th time instead of hitting the club. But how do we reach this point of loving one of MF Doom's Alias albums, one that he's barely rapping on and that features verses from virtually unknown MCs? Let's unpack it. So now you've listened to albums like The College Dropout by Kanye West and The Black Album by Jay-Z, and you fucking love them to the point that you want to hear more hip-hop music that will rock your world. So you obsess over a song like Two Words to the point where you think to yourself, Mos Def's two-syllable rhyme scheme is the definition of high-level rapping. Naturally, this sends you down the rabbit hole of Mos Def's catalog, where you find albums like Black on Both Sides, and you're amazed by the topical focus on a joint like Rock and Roll, and the genius ascending number sequence in the second verse of Mathematics, paired with his brilliant multi-syllabic rhyming. And then you listen to the Black Album, and you're mesmerized by the anthemic beats. You're like, yo, who the fuck is this Ninth Wonder guy? And you realize that he sampled R. Kelly's A Woman's Threat and flipped an R&B slow jam into something cold and cinematic for the song Threat. And then you look into Ninth Wonder, and you realize he's part of this group called Little Brother. And you find the Minstrel Show, and you can't believe you've never heard of them before, and you love the soulful rapping and commitment to high concepts. Basically, you start digging past the Because the Internets, you dig past We Don't Trust You, you dig past Utopia, and Born Sinner, and Barter 6, and Love is Rage 2, and then eventually, your shovel finally takes you to a whole new realm. Under all that earth, you find a whole new world, a planet that rotates on its own axis. They call it the underground. You first go into albums that are sort of like the mainstream of the underground. Stuff like Atrocity Exhibition by Danny Brown or Ex-Military by Death Grips. And to your commercially trained ears, the music is weird, but it's also captivating. You crave more first album experiences that shake you to your core. Eventually, you start looking for new artists on Bandcamp, chasing the thrill of finding something no one else has heard yet. Maybe you're into rage rap, new age trap, the cloud rap scene, and you start vibing with Dior versus You, or 1-1am, or maybe you get into some Plug and B and you're rocking with Autumn and Summers. And maybe you're into the deep backpack bag and you discover underground goats like Odyssey and Jedi Mind Tricks and the Cunning Linguist, and suddenly A Piece of Strange becomes a top 5 rap album of all time for you. But that's not obscure enough. So you need to find names like Willie Nova and Medhane, and essentially rappers that 99% of hip-hop fans have never heard of before and maybe never will, because of now you're in the realm of up-and-coming rappers who may or may not ever blow up. At this point, your conversations about music become very intellectual and very highbrow. You find yourself trying to convince strangers on Reddit that Jay Dilla's rejection of quantization humanized the MPC and in turn influenced Madlib and Flying Lotus and reshaped modern rhythm. You speak about how everyone's favorite rapper can't compare to Ka because of the unattainable level in which he operates at as a wordsmith, and provides these moral parables densely packed with metaphor, allegory, and moral ambiguity, never wasting a single word or syllable. Level 6, the hip-hop historian. Once you've reached this level, you're basically a walking hip-hop encyclopedia. You've heard it all, from Ice Spice's underrated magnum opus Y2K to Cool G Rap's 456. You can't even receive a recommendation anymore because you've heard every fucking rap album to ever exist, and basically, you have no life. After scouring Bandcamp, SoundCloud, and every niche forum in existence, you've become the king of the underground. But even that isn't enough to satisfy your hip-hop craving. Now it's time to absorb everything from the past, present, and future. It's time to master every decade of hip-hop. So you take a time machine back to 1979 and you, I said a hip-hop, the hippie to the hip-hop, and you don't stop. There it is. The first ever rap song, Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang, and you start making your way through the years, from the old school to the boom bap to the golden age, to the bling era, to the mixtape and blog era, to the SoundCloud era, to rage rap and everything in between. You know albums and rappers from all of those eras. You could recite lyrics from any songs from any era pulled out of a fucking hat. You study hip-hop like it's a religion. You know which MPC sampling machine P-Rock used in 1994, which samples Madlib flipped on Shades of Blue, and can name any rapper that's ever been on a DJ Clue or Stretch and Bobbito tape. You don't just listen to music, you analyze it like your life depends on it. You're pausing songs to check the sample credits on who sampled. You're cross-referencing vinyl prices on Discogs and arguing endlessly about whether Rakim or Big Daddy Kane invented a specific flow pattern. You've watched every episode of the Smack DVDs, all of the Check the Rhyme freestyles, old Big L ciphers, and any grainy videos of Blue and Exile performing in vinyl shops in 240p quality. Before you know it, you're listening to rappers from Australia and Senegal who collectively have 14 monthly listeners. You've reached the point that most people never will. Even myself, someone that speaks about the genre full time, is not at this level, and I don't think I've ever even met someone whose knowledge is this extensive, but a few people like this do exist. Somewhere. Like a mythical level of hip-hop nerd. This is the final boss. You reach a point where the new releases don't even excite you anymore because you've heard it all before. Everything that's supposed to be new just sounds like a remix of something that came before it. No one is daring enough to make your ears and your heart open up again. And the well that once kept on giving and giving is now dried up, and there's nothing left but a black hole. But then something beautiful happens. You experience a catharsis and realize that nothing hits like revisiting some of those albums you felt too cultured to return to. The ones that made you fall in love with hip-hop in the first place and really feel something. And you find peace in that. in being able to throw on Be by Common and soak up all the nostalgia and remembering what your life was like when you heard that album for the first time. Level 7, The Professional. A lot of the best rappers of all time were once students of the game. J. Cole said that he used to worship rappers like Eminem and Nas, and he used to actually hang their lyrics up on his bedroom wall. Then take Eminem, who studied Biggie's storytelling, rhyme patterns from Big Daddy Kane, songwriting from Tupac. They loved the craft so much that they wanted to become masters of it. I think the ultimate symbol of love and commitment to hip-hop is actually contributing to the art form, and it doesn't mean that you had to have graduated from all 6 previous levels to get here, but it means that you studied it so hard, or maybe you listened to a Lil Wayne mixtape enough times that you feel like you can have fun on the mic yourself and give it a shot. Come up with your own punchlines and rhythm. You make your own songs and albums, pouring all of your passion into your vision. You listen back to every track you make 100 times, tweaking and editing it until it's exactly right to your own ears. And take Chris Patrick, one of the best up-and-coming rappers and a friend of the show, that told us that after he heard Jid rap on the song 151 Rum, he quit his job on the spot. A single verse gave him the spark to pick up the pen again and push himself to be great, to go all in on his aspirations. That's the power of hip-hop, and that's the 7 levels of hip-hop. So what's next? The 7 level of hip-hop albums? Let us know.